Okay guys, just streaming the next video for how I keyed out this little scene. So essentially what we're going to do is work with a dynamic link between Adobe Premiere and After Effects. This is one that we did earlier. So what we need to do now is create well, we've done it already. It's created a little folder. We just clicked on here, create a new folder, named it the 19th video. And this is the clip here. This is the 19th video. Now, dynamic link's interesting in the sense that when you create a dynamic link, you can't undo it. So generally speaking, what I like to do is grab a clip and literally duplicate it. So that's generally the first thing I'll do. So press and hold Alt, and we've just copied it, okay? The next thing we're going to do is right click and let's have a look. Replace with dynamic link, and of course it's dropped it in here because we had that highlighted earlier. Now that video there, or put simply, this is the raw file, which is actually a lot longer in duration than the actual short clip that we have here. But the dynamic link has shortened it to the section that we had selected. Now what we're going to do is go straight to here and add a couple of little effects. The first one I like to start with is denoiser out of Magic Bullet's range from Red Giant. So Red Giant have a few of these excellent plugins. Not absolutely essential, but this is, I'm just going to show you the Primate Keyer and how that works. But I've started with denoiser, and then of course I'll drop Colorista on next. We'll start with a LUT, so I'll look it up. This was shot on a Panasonic DVX200. So we'll start with the Rec 709 lookup table, although I could have got a bit more creative and found something else. This is just their quick guided tour, and we're just doing the black levels and whatnot, and just adjusting the video clip. And generally speaking, all the clips went through the exact same process. Putting the color back in, but it's looking a little bit unusual in the sense that it's probably not color balanced. So I'm just bringing it back down again. Also adjusting the green screen a little bit, but that's that. So what we'll do now is show you what we did in terms of the color correction. Now the good news about this is I can go back and actually readjust this if I'm not happy with the final output. But what we're going to do for now, go back into project and highlight the folder, re-highlight the clip, go Control-Shift-C to pre-compose, and we're going to call it denoiser underscore colorista, and move all attributes into the new composition and adjust the composition duration to the time span of the selected layers. And this is obviously the time span. Now what this does is it actually grabs these little effects and moves them into this newly named composition. So when we do that, you can see that it's actually removed everything. Forget the name here. This is actually what you need to worry about. That's actually the clip that's now containing. If we just double click that, you can see there it is with the two effects that we applied, denoiser and colorista. Now, just because we close the composition, it doesn't mean it deletes it, of course. Now we're going back to here. What we're going to do next is grab smooth color. This is another range of plugins from Red Giant, and we're going to pick a color to smooth out the green screen. Sometimes I tweak this. In this case, I'll leave it alone. But what I will do is pre-compose it again just to show you what's going on so you're not confused. We go back into highlight the folder. We've got this already highlighted, Control-Shift-C. If nothing happens, I generally just re-click it again. I don't know why that happens, but it does. We're going to call this smooth color, the same name as the plugin that we added. Of course, move attributes and adjust to the composition length. If you don't check that, it will actually make it way too long, or put simply the original clip length. We don't want that. So smooth screen, and of course it's removed it out of here and put it into here. Okay, and if we double check smooth screen, you can see that it's in here. So there's your smooth screen. Okay, so we're going to go back to this again. So just get rid of that for now. Now we're going to add Primate Keyer, and this one's going to be working in an interesting way. First things first, we're going to use HD Cam. What apparently that does is it smooths out the edges. Pretty subtle though. If I get rid of it, you'll see a slight change in the video, but not a lot. The next thing though that we really want to do is grab a good key. So we've got that selected, and we're just going to do multiple points. What this is doing is the more points, the more it's averaging. So it's deleted that. It's left this alone. So what we're going to do is mask that separately. We're going to clean the background. But before we do that, we can now add the adjust light on off. And what that does is it sort of works, it sort of doesn't. Let's just have a look, see if it's helping or hindering. Yeah, it's not doing us any good. So we're going to get rid of it and just key out this little bit down the bottom. That's gone. Key out a little bit more. That's going to disappear eventually, and I don't think we've got anything left. So what we're going to do then is clean the foreground, just in case we've lost some detail in the clothing. What I like to do is sample one side, sample the yellow and the skin, just to make sure that we haven't lost any detail. You need to be careful about the edges now. So it looks like we've got a pretty good mask. So white, pure white means it's opaque, and we can see a few of these little specks that need to disappear. So go back to clean background. I just like to point sample, and that's disappearing, and we'll do a little bit in here. Starting to vanish out there. We're not going to get rid of this without it affecting this. So what we're going to do, go back to comp. We're actually going to apply a mask up here. So to do that, we've got to make sure that we've got the Primate Keyer selected, and we want that to get the mask, not some random mask all by itself. So we need to make sure that Primate Keyer is selected, as you can see. Sometimes you'll notice you're clicking these controls and nothing's happening, and it's actually moving the footage around. You're thinking, what's going on? Just Control Z that. What you need to make sure you're doing is you select the Primate Keyer, and now it will do everything you want. But what we're going to do is, because it's now selected, we're going to create a mask. We're going to start here and not go too crazy. We're going to use the hand tool, go back to the pen tool, and mask this out. Don't worry if it doesn't do what we want it to. It's obviously picked the wrong thing. It's left this in place, but not helped us there. So what we now do is we go into here and we invert the mask. So now it's removed that and left her alone. What we've got to do now is key that, because she does move throughout the scene. So she's doing nothing, and then she goes under, and then she will step in front of that mask and she'll be masked out. No, perfect. It's nothing doing. But normally what I would do is move that mask and keyframe it, but we didn't need to do it. And one of the ways you can keyframe that, if we had to, is we go back up here and pick tracker, pick the mask. So select the mask, and you could track it. You can either press play and then let each frame move, and then you move the mask as you need, but we didn't need to do it, so let's not worry about it. So now clearly we've got a problem here, haven't we? We've got this issue where we've kind of got this fringe and all this other silliness going on. One thing I can do is look for any green spill, which we got lucky on this one. We haven't got any. So we're looking for some green spill on her clothing and other problems, but we don't seem to have it. So what we'll do in this case is we're going to show you the next phase. What we do is highlight that. We're going to go Control D to create a duplicate. Then we're going to remove the effect on this bottom layer, but we're going to keep the effect on this upper layer, right? So what this means now is we have this layer that looks like this, and this layer that's got the full color saturation that we want. What we're going to do is combine the two by doing this. We're just going to go in here and go alpha matte, meaning I want you to take the transparency, black and white transparency from this layer and apply it to this layer. And when that happens, you've got the full color of this layer, but you've got the cool keying matte of the upper layer. But what we've got now is a bit of a problem. We've got this nice green outline. I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. But first things first, we're going to highlight these. Well, we're going to go to Project, into the 19th video folder. Now, what we're going to do is go Control Shift C, which creates a pre-comp. We're going to call it Primate Keyer, and move all attributes and also adjust to the duration. So there's our Primate Keyer now. But what we've also got now, if we go back, is we've got nothing in here now. What we're going to do, get rid of the tracker, go back to the effects, and we're going to choose the very first thing we want to pick out is the Refine Soft Matte. What this will do is immediately start shrinking the green out of there, which is the first thing we want to do. Hopefully that works. We're getting a bit of a load time there. And if you actually look at what's going on, you can see the CPU just maxed out, the memory's maxed out, and the hard drive's almost maxed out. So, okay, that's almost working. Okay, something's going on there. Okay, so we seem to have a bit of a problem. Let's have a look. Okay, let's just double check what's going on. The first thing I'm going to do is reduce this to 2, and seems to be really struggling with this for some reason. Okay. So what we're better off doing now is going into the Primate key. Let's just get rid of that for a sec. We've obviously got a bit of an issue. So we're going to go back to the Primate key, which is probably for the best. We actually want to get that back up. Let's just double check that we haven't left it on accidentally. No, we haven't. But what we've got to do is deal with something in here. One of the ways to do that with Primate Keyer is to go in here and defocus. So I'll show you what that does. It actually blurs the edges, and it also kills off any spill. Shrink matte will actually kill off anything that might be spilling out of the opaque area, which we need to do. We need to kill anything off in here, which seems to have been the problem. Spill tends to do that. So we've done that. See if we can go back into the project. We'll go back into, let's have a look. Go back into this comp now. So let's see if we can't turn that back on and see what happens. Yeah, there seems to be, okay, that seems to improve the situation. So put simply, what we did there was the shrink matte ended up killing off anything that was happening here, because obviously it was thinking there was some detail in here that needed to be actually softened, but we clearly didn't want that. We needed to kill that off. So what we're going to do now is go back into the effects control. We've got a radius blur here happening, but we're going to smooth things out a little bit to about 2. Enter. Just going to keep fine tuning until we've pretty much got a nice smoothness. Doesn't go too far. Shift edge tends to move the blur away from her clothing out a little bit, but we're going to do it about 2. Just see if we can't get a little bit more of the edge, but we're going to zoom out a little bit and make sure we aren't losing too much of that detail. But we don't want to start bringing back the green. As you can see, it's starting to come back. So we're going to dial that in a bit to 3. Okay. Let's have a look. Chatter correction, we're going to make that more detailed. Sort of does something. And motion blur, I think I should turn that on, although I probably should do my research on what that actually does. The feathering, you only want that at 1. If I zoom in a little bit and press enter, you'll sort of see it feathers the edge just that little bit, but not too much, because obviously it starts feathering in. She looks like she's fully ghosted. Contrast is good to have a little bit. We'll start at 10. Contrast tends to sharpen the edge a little bit, but still keep the feathering. It's kind of like very subtle. I'll show it at 20%. And you can see what it did. It killed off the feather and doesn't let it get out of control. But if we sit it at about 15, let's say 16%, you'll see that you can actually play with the feathering. So contrast tends to dial it in a little bit. So this is a brilliant way to just kill off that little bit of green that we had. Now, to absolutely annihilate any chance of any green anywhere, let's just have a look and see if we go forward a little bit, if we see any of that green appearing. But it's done a pretty good job. This is actually a fantastic way of removing any green. We've got a bit of green spill here. If we use the hand tool and zoom in, you can certainly see some green spill. So to get rid of that once and for all, we actually use the advanced green screen spiller. That just dials out the green, and then we can suppress it a little bit to about, say, 60%. And you bring some of it back in, maybe go 70%. But here's the thing to look out for with the green spill suppression, so you don't get too carried away with it. You'll notice that it does, in fact, affect the colors of her clothing generally. So you just got to watch out that you're not, and you can see it definitely does. So when it's turned off, that's what she looks like. When it's turned back on, if you're happy with that coloring, then by all means leave it. But just be aware that from one shot to the next, you don't want to vary the green screen spill, especially when it's the same actress, because obviously you'll get these shirts changing colors. So, and if we dial it back, you can see that it's doing less and less work. So we probably want to sit it at about maybe 60, dialing in the green. More importantly though, let's send that back to where it belongs. So we're going to go project, back to the 19th video. We're going to highlight this, and we're going to go, we can go layer, pre-compose, and we're going to call it spill suppressor. Remembering what this does, it's going to move all the attributes into this composition called spill suppressor and limit it to the actual duration of the actual clip. So we've done that. There it is there. Spill suppressor is now done, as you can see. And if we go back to the original underwater limbo little video, it's all back to normal. What we're going to do now is grab the background, pull that in, and drag that out a little bit. Hold the shift key to keep the constraint where it needs to, and release. And now what we're going to do is another instance of Primatte Keyer, but we're going to ignore the original controls and just focus on the color matcher. Okay, and I'll show you what that does. If you go to 90%, you're going to see that she's going to change some weird colors, but we don't want that. We're going to, oh, and no, nothing happened, of course, because I didn't pick the background. And you can see she changed color quite dramatically. We don't want that. So we want to basically be sitting at about, say, 14%. And she's a blend of the background. She's basically, what's happening is the color is, if we enable it, disable, it's pretty subtle. We might sit it at about 18%, but we don't want to go too crazy. But essentially she's blending into the background, and light wrap is pretty subtle. I'm not even going to really worry about it here. But that's your green screen removed within reason, of course. And I think that was done reasonably quick. We didn't spend 20, 30 minutes there doing this. This was a reasonably quick workflow. So just remember, we used Primatte Keyer, which is Red Giant's tool. Quite good. I think it works better than, say, the Keylight. And I'm sure there's lots of guys explaining how Keylight 1.2 works, but you could certainly do this workflow with Keylight or with Primatte Keyer. Both of them will work. So obviously if I save now, which is always a good idea, is just to save that and go back to our little video. Just go forward a little bit here. You'll see that this all populates. We're going to lose all this little green and all this other rubbish and all that other stuff, and we're back to where we should be. So that's excellent. That's the workflow. Works pretty well in my mind, and we can save that. And then of course, you're pretty much done. So very good workflow for removing your green screen and getting to a stage where even at a close-up, we can actually see that we're looking pretty good. If we go a little bit closer again, let's just go to say 75%. You can see that we're doing pretty well. If we go even closer to say 100%, you know, it's almost impossible to really spot. Certainly while this is moving, you're not going to notice it. So we're doing pretty well, I think. Now, clearly the improvements for a future shoot would be to obviously record in DNX HD, so recording better quality video. So DNX HD on a video Atomos video assist would be a good idea, and essentially not using any compression whatsoever. So when you record the compressed file of a video, you want to avoid that as much as possible. So you know, an Atomos video recorder would be better because it records in 422 at 220 DNX. So put simply, a higher quality video codec is going to do you wonders in terms of improving the quality of the video. Obviously, making sure that everything's lit up properly, green screens being evenly lit, and the subject being evenly lit as well, will mean that this would be even better. Frame rate, probably 30 frames per second, maybe a little bit higher, say 50 frames a second. The reason why you shoot at a higher frame rate is because you don't have the blur, and that's where all that ghosting green came from. But we just eliminated. But to really get high quality green screen that's very, very sharp is shoot at a higher frame rate. If you shoot at 24p, you'll get a lot of ghosting and obviously the natural look of the 24p. But the problem is removing the green screen is trickier. So there you go, that's it. We accomplished that, and of course we've got 2 more clips to do, and this is pretty much done. Cheers for watching, guys, appreciate it.